Welcome to the Justin Strawn podcast. I am your host, Justin Strawn. I'm running a little bit short on time this morning. Got started recording a little bit later than I had planned to, so might be a short show today. Might be going only about 20 minutes or so. But I did want to talk about some of the things that happened overnight with Mississippi State, and also talk about a couple of things that I've watched on television recently. So I want to go ahead and jump into that. Like I said, probably won't be an incredibly long show, but I do want to go ahead and get a show in, just because of the baseball game last night and also the surprising result of the basketball team. I don't know why I'm surprised by just how bad they lost, but they did lose really, really badly. So before we get into all that, just a reminder, if you're not following on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of the social media places, YouTube as well, if you're not following there, I post almost everything that I do on all of those platforms. I'm trying to get better about posting my clips and my reels onto Twitter as well. So, like I said, if you're not following me on all those platforms, I would really appreciate it if you did. If you're listening to this on a podcast catcher, it would also help me a lot if you could rate it on whatever podcast platform you use. If you're on Apple, if you could write a really quick review, that helps as well. So, like I said, all those things would do a lot to get this podcast going in the upward direction. So, let's go ahead and talk about some things that we saw last night with Mississippi State. We'll start there. Mississippi State's baseball team does lose to the Southern Miss Golden Eagles 7-6. It was a good game. It was a really, really good game. Mississippi State gets down early. They put themselves in a pretty big hole there to begin with. They're down 5-0 by the end of the fourth inning, I think, is when Southern Miss scored their fifth run. The first inning gets off to a really bad start. Sweeney, who was the starting pitcher for the Bulldogs last night, just did not locate very well at all. He was not locating his pitches anywhere close to where he needs to be locating them. He left a few out over the plate, and the one big 3-run bomb that he gives up in the bottom half of the first inning, I mean, it was a hanging slider or a breaking ball. I'm assuming it was a slider. I don't remember what they said on the broadcast, but it was a hanging breaking ball, and the guy who hit it crushed it. I think they said it went like 450 feet. It was gone the moment he hit the bat. I mean, you just knew it was one of those balls that you could just tell that he just absolutely crushed and it was gone. But he gives up the big bomb. He's down 3-0. Second inning, Ryder Woodson makes an inexplicable error. He drops a pop-up, and another run comes around to score because of it. Then the Bulldogs give up another. I think Jack Gleason gives up a solo. I think it was Jack Gleason that gave up a solo home run in the bottom half of the third or the fourth. I think it was the fourth, but I'm not 100% positive about that. But so like I said, they get down 5-0, but then the Bulldogs, because they do have a pretty good lineup, they start chipping away. Noah Sullivan gets a 2 RBI double. Then he's brought in, somebody else brings him in. Bulldogs end up taking the lead in the top half of the seventh, I think. I'm not sure if it was the seventh or the eighth, I don't remember. But then in the very next half inning, the Bulldogs end up giving up 2 runs. They bring in a freshman pitcher. I don't remember the guy's name. And he gets a little bit of bad luck. He gives up a hit, and I don't remember if it was a double and the guy just gets to third. I don't remember how he got to third, but basically, I know he struck out one guy where the winning run comes across, and that's how it would have put the Bulldogs out of the inning if he doesn't throw a wild pitch on the strikeout. It's a really good pitch, but our catcher, I don't remember who our catcher's name is. Maluski is currently injured, so I'm not sure who is backing him up, but he couldn't handle the pitch, and the winning run comes across. And I think the same thing happened on the game tying run too. I think it was a strikeout. It was with 2 outs, and because it was a strikeout with 2 outs, whoever was on first. Normally, if there's a runner on first, if there's less than 2 outs, you can't advance. The batter cannot go to first and try to advance on a wild pitch on a strikeout. But because of the fact that if there were 2 outs, the batter got the chance to go to first base. And like I said, I think I think that happened twice. I don't remember. I watched the game, but like I said, I was having to do a couple other things at the same time while I was watching it. So I don't remember. I know it happened on the winning run. I just don't remember if it happened on the game tying run as well. So a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of some bad breaks there for the Bulldogs in terms of trying to catch the Golden Eagles. And then they can't end up pulling it out in the top half of the ninth. The Bulldogs end up losing. Is it cause for concern because you've now lost 2 games in a row and the 2 best teams you have played are losses? One, I would say if you haven't seen what I said about the previous game, the game against UCLA on TikTok, a lot of people have. I would say they got robbed in that game, so I'm not that concerned about that. And also, this game was on the road. It was a true road game against a top 10 opponent. So I'm not too terribly concerned about that either. I mean, I guess you do have to be a little concerned just because of the fact that, you know, the best teams you have played, you haven't performed as well as you need to. And it's not the lineup. I mean, Mississippi State scores 7 runs on Sunday and end up losing. And then they score 6 runs last night and end up losing. So if you're going to score 7 runs, if you're going to score 6 runs, you need to win those games. I mean, there needs to be a couple of times that you lose them, but as of right now, you've got 2 losses with a 7 and a 6 spot on the scoreboard. You don't want to see that very often. And I guess that is probably the primary cause for concern if you want one going forward into this thing is the Bulldogs pitching as deep and as talented as the lineup is. The Bulldogs pitching is not quite there yet with the lineup. They're going to have to occasionally just outscore some teams. I think with your weekend starters, I think you're good. I think you've got 3 really solid guys who can go out and give you at least 5, if not 6 or 7 innings of quality pitching. And if they can get it into like the 6th or 7th inning, you don't have to dig too far deep into your bullpen. And that's where I think Mississippi State that's their Achilles heels. Once you get a little bit deeper into that bullpen, a little bit deeper into that rotation, you're going to see some weak spots there. And that's, I think, what we saw last night. I think it's also what we saw against the Bruins on Sunday. So we'll see. I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I'm not terribly concerned about it. I am a little concerned, like I said, about the pitching depth. I think this team is really talented. I think they have a great chance to make it to Omaha. I think they have a great chance to make it to the College World Series and end up winning the entire thing. I think the lineup is talented enough, but they are going to have some guys who step up on the pitching side of this thing and take care of business. Now, a couple of shows ago, I said I was laying out what were reasonable expectations for Mississippi State before the Arkansas series, and I said no more than 2 losses. Well, you're there now, and these are the 2 games that concerned me were the UCLA game and this game against Southern Miss. You need to go out this weekend. You need to sweep Lipscomb. That's a team you should definitely sweep, even if you don't have your best game. You should be able to sweep that team. So you got to go out and sweep them. You've got a game in Biloxi next week during spring break against Tulane. Tulane's a good team. They're a good team, but you still need to win that game. You don't want to go into the Arkansas series having lost 3 games having 3 losses on your schedule. And Arkansas struggled a little bit. And they lost to Arkansas State last week, and they also lost to Texas Arlington once. So, like I said, they lost, and they stayed at number 6 in the rankings, which I just don't personally understand. I don't know how you have losses like a loss to Arkansas State and a loss to Texas Arlington and not drop in the rankings. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but I don't do the rankings, so what do I know? But like I said, I'm very interested to see how they respond because they do need to get to Arkansas with no more than 2 losses. A team, and it's an Arkansas team that you haven't always played that great against. So you need to try what's exercise? That's the word. Exercise some demons against the Razorbacks and get this SEC play started on the right foot, because then you got Vanderbilt coming to town, and Vanderbilt's struggling a little bit. So you got a chance to get off to a good start if you can get a couple of wins in Arkansas next week. But we'll talk more about that at some point next week. Let's go ahead and transition to the pathetic display that the basketball team put on. Look, I didn't watch the game. I was watching the baseball team. I'm sure most people were the same way. I doubt very many people in the state of Mississippi were watching the Florida Mississippi State basketball game, but there might have been a few. But it, you lose by 34 points. It was 108 to 74. Look, I will continue to say I'm not going to call for Chris James' job. I think he's done enough to deserve at least one bad year to try to rebound and to try to correct it. I think he's earned that. However, I just don't know if you have any confidence in him to do it. I mean, this, like I said last time, this team has quit. That was a pathetic display. I don't even know what happened. I will say this: I looked at the score at one point. Mississippi State was up 24-23 with like 8 minutes left in the first half. Florida, looking at, I was kind of watching. I was kind of watching the box score just as I was watching the state baseball game. And Florida starts to pull away a little bit there at the end of the first half, and then they just completely pulled away in the second half. It was just an absolutely disgusting performance by the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Like I said, I'm not calling for Chris James' job. I think he will get a fifth year to try to fix this. But if you're not one of those people, if you're saying I'm ready to move on now, I get it. I mean, this is like the sixth or seventh SEC game that they have lost by 20 points or more. Not only are they losing, they're not even competitive. I mean, in years past, these first 3 years when they lost, so there were a few games they got blown out. That definitely happened. But they were at least competing most of the time when they lost these games. And right now, they're not even competing. They're just going out and going through the motions. And we've talked about on this podcast, and I've seen other people talk about it as well. You need to get some cohesion. You need to get some of these guys to come back. But as much as they have quit on this team, how many people want to come back? I'm very much afraid that we're going to have the exact same issue that we had this year, where Chris James is going to have to go out and basically rebuild the entire team through the portal. And if that happens, it's not, you might as well just go ahead and write the team off for next year, because he has not proven that he can properly evaluate players in the portal. He seems to do a pretty good job evaluating high school players, but for whatever reason, he can't figure out who to bring in through the portal that can help this team and get this team to play at a higher level when they're relying on transfer portal players. It's just not happening for him. And I just don't understand what it's going to take for him to evaluate better, for him and his coaching staff to evaluate better, because right now they are pathetic. They're pathetic defensively. They're pathetic offensively. And if it weren't for Josh Hubbard, this team wouldn't be worth even turning on. And because baseball season has started, if they are ever competing for the attention of Mississippi State fans, my guess is people are turning on the baseball team. And like I said, if you're not one of those people that thinks Chris James deserves another year, I get it. And I do wonder if Zach Selman, who did not hire Chris James was a John Cohen hire, if after watching just how badly and how poorly this team has played the last couple of weeks, if he's just like, you know what, Chris James, you're not my guy. I didn't hire you. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to go ahead and move on and get somebody that I want in to this position and get them hired. It wouldn't shock me if that happens. Like I said, I don't think that's going to happen, but would it surprise me? No, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. So, like I said, I'm really, really hopeful that Chris James can figure it out next year and get this team back on the right track, but I'm not very optimistic about it, to say the least. So we'll see what they can do, but I just don't have a whole lot of hope for them at this point. All right, let's talk about a couple of entertainment things, and then I'm probably going to have to wrap up. I do want to talk about one personal thing as well, though. I did start watching The Night Agent. It debuted, the season 3 of The Night Agent debuted either sometime this week. I don't know if it was yesterday or if it was a couple of days ago, but it is a show on Netflix. It's in its 3rd season. And this is another show that I kind of talked about this the last couple of times. This is another show that comes out about a year after the first season, after the previous season ends up going off air. So the 2nd season came out, I think, in January of 2025, and this one's coming out in March of 2026. So a little over a year. That's fine. But it's a good show. It's not a great show, but it's a really solid show. This is what Ryan and I and a lot of other people call dad TV. Shows like this, shows like Jack Ryan, shows like Reacher on Amazon Prime. Those are like dad TV shows. They're not shows that are just going to like wow you or intellectually stimulate your brain. They're not going to do anything like that, but they're just good, fun, entertaining shows. There's a little bit of mystery and intrigue, and not a ton, but a little bit. You've got really like one-dimensional characters going up against your protagonist in this. And like I said, it's good. It's not great, but I think so far, at least what I've seen, I have not seen the whole thing. I have not seen the whole season. I think this one's better than the second season. I really enjoyed the first season. I thought the first season was really good. The second season I thought was definitely a step back from season one, but this one feels a little bit closer to season one. I'm still not quite ready to put it at the same level as season one yet, though. But it's good. It's like I said, if you're looking for that type of a show where you got international intrigue, you got spy stuff, you got you know international crises, stuff like that. I would think you would enjoy The Night Ages. I'm not going to get into any spoilers for any of the seasons because maybe you haven't watched it. It's one of Netflix's most watched shows. That's the reason we're back for a third season on this thing and back so quickly on it. But I would recommend it. Like I said, if you're into that kind of show, if you've watched Jack Ryan, if you've watched Reacher, if you've watched Cross, um, all of those types of shows, those are this show falls into that exact same line of television, and I would recommend it, especially if you liked any of those previous shows. This one will probably suit you just well. Other thing I want to talk about, I love stand-up comedy. I love stand-up comedy. In March, so actually we're in March. At the end of this month, my wife has bought me tickets to see Nate Bargatze in the FedEx Forum, so we'll be going to go see that. He's by far my favorite stand-up comic right now, but there's a few others that I enjoy. Most recent stand-up comic to put a special on Netflix, maybe there's been somebody since then. Taylor Tomlinson put a Netflix special up last week on Netflix, and it's really good. I really enjoyed this one. Look, I will say this: Taylor Tomlinson is not for everyone. She is not clean. So if you're looking for somebody who does clean comedy, that is not Taylor Tomlinson. But I think she is funny. I like this one a lot because this one is really kind of personal for her. It takes place, she does her stand-up comic routine in this particular Netflix special at a church. And it's interesting because the fact that sh throughout most of her specials, and this one is heavily relied upon her youth growing up in a Christian home and just how toxic that was for her and how difficult that was for her. And like I said, that's not going to be for everyone. So you know, if you are a Christian, you have a hard time hearing people talk about how they don't like what Christianity did for them. I wouldn't recommend this, but I will say this: she's not attacking Christianity. She never attacks Christianity. She just attacks some of the people that are involved with Christianity and some of the issues that we have in the Christian world with a lot of Christian leaders trying to be influencers and trying to really expand, who seem to be more concerned with expanding their reach in terms of making money and being on Instagram and being on TikTok than they are actually about trying to influence people for the gospel. And that's really kind of what she goes at a lot in this. So like I said, I enjoyed it. I know she is not for everyone. And some people just don't even like women in comics, and that's a whole nother topic that I'm not going to touch in this particular episode, but I know there are some people who like that. But like I said, I really enjoy her. I think she's funny. And I like this one a lot because there are some things that she says in there that really spoke to me. And I have had some of the same similar issues with in the past as well. So like I said, I really enjoyed that one and I thought it was good. If you don't mind any of that, highly recommend it. It will make you laugh. She's got some really good bits in there. It's really funny at times. So that would be my suggestion. One last thing. I posted on TikTok earlier this morning before I started recording just some photos of me and from where I was about 9 months ago to where I am today. 9 months ago, I weighed almost 260 pounds. And today, I'm clocking in at 225. I've started exercising recently, started trying to really do some serious work to lose weight. And look, it helps. I've done this before when my son was born back in 2007. I was a little over 250 pounds. I got serious about it. I ended up losing a lot of weight, got down to like 180. And for the most part, I kept it off for about 10 years. And then I had some issues with my knee. And that's when I started to balloon back up. It's a lot harder to do this at 47 than it is at 27, but I'm really happy with the way this has worked out for me. I'm hoping that I can continue to get some of these pounds off. I'm not quite where I want to be. Like I said, 225 pounds. I would really like to be back under 200. That's kind of my goal. If I could get back down to that weight of like 180, that would be great. But, I am older. It is harder. So we'll see, but definitely trying to get back down to under 200. And if you need to, if you know you need to lose weight, if it's difficult for you to just kind of get up and walk around, if doing anything is uncomfortable, guys, let me tell you, just do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to motivate you. If it takes getting on one of the shots and you can afford it, do it. People say, well, if you take the shots, you'll end up gaining it all back. The thing about taking shots or taking any kind of a weight loss drug, what you have to do is you have to establish good habits when you're actually taking those drugs. And then when you come off of them, if you've established those good habits, if you started exercising, if you've gotten conscious of what it takes to actually fill you up instead of just sitting there and eating until your entire plate is clean, you have to establish those good habits while you're on those drugs. That way, when you come off of them, you know what it's like and what you're supposed to do and how much you're supposed to eat when you're not on them. So like I said, it makes a world of difference. Like I said, I've lost about 35 pounds. I've still got about 30 more pounds I would like to lose. Even though I've still got a long ways to go, I'm in a much better place. This past weekend was my son's birthday. He turned 19. He could not come home because he's part of the professional golf management program at Mississippi State. And he couldn't come home because they had a mandatory tournament that he needed to play in. So we went down to Starkville and we celebrated with him. And on Sunday, my wife and daughter had to get home early. So I ended up staying around a little bit longer. And I watched him play about 8 holes and I walked it. There weren't any carts around. And usually whenever I've had to walk a tournament for him in the past couple of years, my knee is just shot. It is just absolutely positively shot. I wouldn't be able to. There was one tournament that he had a couple of years ago where I tried my best to walk it and I was having to sit after about 10 holes. I was having to sit every opportunity that I could. We got to the end of hole 16 and I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. It was actually at Mississippi State. It was at their course and it was being played alongside a professional golf management tournament, which is kind of interesting. But sitting there watching him play, one of the guys who was part of that PGM program called the pro shop and said, "Hey, y'all need to come bring a cart out and come get him because he just can't walk anymore." And that wasn't going to be the case if I'd done the full 18, because like I said, after 8 holes, I wasn't even tired. It was easy to walk. I felt good. So like I said, if you need motivation, whatever it takes for you to get motivated to get that weight off, and if you know you need to lose it, I highly recommend that you take those steps, whatever steps they may be. I highly recommend you take them because so far for me, it's been well worth it. So, all right, guys, like I said, today is going to be a short show. So I didn't have a whole lot of time and I really got to get logged in and start my actual job. So appreciate everybody who follows. And like I said, if you aren't, I'd really appreciate it if you did. And until next time, we'll see you then.